Political leaders from across Russia and Europe and even into the United States have been warning us for some time that the world might be close to a third world war. For that to be true and not just alarmist rhetoric, the individual confrontations would have to begin to join up. It would have to go beyond simply supplying money or arms. And that is why the news that thousands of elite North Korean troops have arrived to help President Putin in the Kursk area of Russia, where he confronts Ukrainian forces, does sound dangerous. Let's speak now to the Defence and Foreign Affairs analyst and former Director General of the Royal United Services Institute, Michael Clarke. Michael, very good to have you on the show as ever. Tell us a little bit about what we know of these North Korean troops who have arrived in the Kursk area, but not yet actually fought the Ukrainians.
No, they seem to be lots of reports that a group has arrived in the Kursk region. The numbers vary from 3,000 to 10,000 and possibly up to 15,000, who have been transported into Russia from North Korea for training and acclimatization and new uniforms and new identities and so on. It looks as if maybe 3,000 may be involved in the Kursk pocket in the fighting in Kursk, which is a brigade level force. We'll see if that number really works out. But the maximum number looks as if it's going to be in the 10 to 15,000 range, which won't make a huge difference to the numbers involved. Russia's got over 400,000 troops engaged in the whole theatre. So 3,000 in Kursk and 10,000 eventually may not make that much difference, but it will make some difference at some particular areas depending on how they're used. And I think they'll have to be used as a single unit. They can't be integrated in with Russian forces for language reasons and the reasons of their own training. They'll have to operate as a unit. So I think it'll be pretty obvious when the Ukrainians find themselves fighting North Koreans, as I think they will fairly soon, it'll be pretty clear who they are.
And if you are a Ukrainian soldier on the front line in Kursk and you're about to confront North Korean special forces, how worried should you be?
Well, they may not be North Korean special forces. We just don't know. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that they believe that they have evidence that these are actually scratch forces, that they're teenagers, young conscripts, that they don't seem terribly fit. They don't seem all that healthy, to be honest, although they are disciplined and they do have weapons and uniforms and so on. So we'll see how good they are. But you're right, in principle, it's bad news for the Ukrainians if they feel that there could be lots more North Korean forces turning up. I mean, armies are all about their morale and their sense of hope for the future. And if the prospect is that potentially unlimited numbers of North Korean troops might turn up on the front, then that, of course, will have an effect on the Ukrainians, who are already under pressure, who are already outnumbered by the number of Russians there. And although the Russian troops are not desperately good, and North Korean troops may not be desperately good, sheer numbers eventually will tell.
And to be absolutely clear, what's not going to happen is that Ukrainians are not going to be supplied by other Western countries or Western country troops. There's no chance of, as it were, some kind of international brigade arriving from outside Ukraine to help them.
Certainly not foreign boots on the ground. It's not going to be Western boots on the ground. There's some possibility maybe of Western air action. We're not there yet by any means, but there's some possibility that might be contemplated maybe into next year. I mean, at the moment, the Western nations need to supply more ammunition. If the Ukrainians have got to deal with more troops, then they need more ammunition. I mean, that's the nature of war. If North Koreans turn up, the Ukrainians have got to try to kill them. That's what warfare is. But there is another aspect to this, Andrew, which is that the effect of this in the Indo-Pacific region might be quite considerable. So the idea that the North Koreans, as you said in your introduction, are sending troops to fight in Europe may actually have quite a big effect in the Indo-Pacific. And it might actually have a galvanizing effect on the Western allies of Ukraine to say we've got to do much more along the present lines, but we've got to do more of it more urgently so that they don't get overwhelmed.
And do you see this as a possible moment in this the individual conflict starting to join up and spread, which I was saying earlier on would be a very dangerous thing to happen?
Yeah, I've always said, Andrew, that this war is going to proliferate horizontally. I don't think it proliferates in a vertical direction, but it is becoming more generalized. It will draw in more powers and more people, and horizontal proliferation has been built into this war from the very beginning. And as it proliferates horizontally, as more nations become involved in it and become drawn into having to take a stand on it one way or another, so it becomes a more defining war for our era. And to be honest, it's more defining for our era than anything that's happening in the Middle East. Dreadful though that is, and important though that is in the Middle East, what is happening in Ukraine, in global terms, is rather